Okay, well, everyone, thank you for joining us. I think we have a nice little group that's on board here today. My name is Hank Groff. I am Senior Vice President of DynaMark. DynaMark is located out of Hagerstown, Maryland. We're a national alarm company, and obviously some of you are already dealers or partners of ours, and some of you are simply people who want to know more about some of the services and offers that we provide. So I want to start our call today with a little overview of our company as a whole, and then share with you some exciting news of partners we're looking for in our business, opportunities for possibly you as a company to be paid by DynaMark for service or installation. First of all, you'll notice that on the screen here, you'll see that I have up the map of the United States, and what you see listed here is a number of icons, and they represent each individual businesses of ours. The first one you'll notice is, and I probably best to do it this way, is simply show you our yellow stars. Our yellow stars represent our DynaMark authorized partners. These are individuals who sell us alarm agreements on a regular basis. They are paid for those agreements, typically on a weekly basis. We now currently have about 15 partners around the country, and if you are interested in becoming a partner, certainly you should talk to us. I'm going to turn that off and show you our wholesale dealers. We then have a group of wholesale dealers around the country. Specifically, a dealer of ours is someone who hires us to do their monitoring for either alarm panels or MPERS, medical types of things like that. The pin and the cross that you see represent different types of dealers of ours, but currently we have over 550 partners and dealers altogether that have joined our organization and worked with us. The next group, and the one I want to talk about today, are what we call service anchors. These are, and we like to use the little hammer as representation of who a service anchor is. It's someone who we consider to be an anchor in this 65-mile service area. So let me zoom in and show you in Colorado as an example. All of these circles represent a 65-mile radius. So from this one anchor that you see listed here, we have the opportunity to cover all service and potential installations in this marketplace. This individual has been vetted and gone through due diligence to become a authorized service anchor, installation anchor for us. And so we compensate them for that work. And to show you a little bit about what the compensation looks like, let me pull this document up right here. We like to call it the DynaMark Anchor Program. And it's designed by DynaMark to provide stability for our partners and our own company throughout the USA. Our intent is to find anchors in every area where we either have an authorized partner or a base of accounts owned by DynaMark. So to explain it, it's really two responsibilities. One is to service accounts that we own, and the other one would be to install potential new customers that we're obtaining. First of all, let's talk about service. Let me explain the anchor program in regards to service. First of all, the anchor will forward an invoice for payment along with a copy of a signed work order within 15 days of the completion of a work. And this, of course, is assuming that you now have signed the agreement to become an anchor for us. We will also, when in regards to equipment, it can be billed at the rates indicated in DynaMark's list of approved equipment. I won't bore you with those details at this moment, but we have a complete list of all the major panels and what we pay you for any equipment. Any items not on the approved list must receive prior approval before use. In regards to labor, we pay $65 per hour. We guarantee at least 30 minutes, and then each 15 minutes is recalculated once the individual shows up and puts the system on test and sends signals. From that point, then we will measure out every 15 minutes. On top of that, we also pay a trip charge of $25 for up to 40 miles from the anchor's office closest to the customer site, and another $25 if they have to go beyond 40 miles. So in a case where someone goes out for 1 hour, you're looking and they're 42 miles away, that would be $115. And then, of course, if there's any equipment that you need to replace that's out of warranty, we would pay for that as well. So while no one is getting rich, certainly it can create an additional source of revenue for our company. You're not required to monitor your accounts with us, nor are you required to sell accounts to us. However, we certainly hope that if we do a good job as service partners together, that as an anchor, you would consider us in the future. In regards to installation, there are times when we have customers who are moving from, let's say, Tampa, Florida to Denver, Colorado, and we will need someone to do the installation. We will pay that anchor for the installation. We find that regardless of the situation, we best handle all of our customers from day one on a move. So let's say Tom and Mary are getting ready to move from Tampa to Denver, Colorado. They call us up, and we like to handle everything. So what we will typically do is walk them through what they'll need in their new home. For anyone who is not aware of the DynaMark agreement, anyone who has a system for the first 2 years of the agreement will pay us $195 for a basic system move anywhere in the United States. Then what we will do is we will ship to the anchor a 2 gig standard system via our distributor Fast, and we'll ship that to either the new homeowner's address, homeowner's new address, or to the install anchor's address, whichever is more convenient. Then we pay the following fees. The install rate is $200 for a basic package. The travel times are $25 for the first 40 miles and another $25 beyond 40 miles. If there's any additional items that are being installed, then that would be part of what we call additional equipment. So if the customer wants more than the basic system, we on the phone at DynaMark will attempt to determine their needs and sell any additional devices that will be shipped along with the basic system for installation. If we sell it and we ship it to you, we'll pay you additional labor rates based on the time that it takes to install those devices. However, if the customer is not sure which additional equipment they would like to add at the time, then what we'll at least do is make some notes so the customer may want to consider adding that system when the technician gets there. The customer can then purchase these items from the install anchor using our standard rates. These rates will be listed on the website and be made available to the customer. If you do go to our website, dynamarksecurity.com/move with us, and I'll click that right now, you can see here that we have right here under DynaMark Customer Catalog for all of our customers to see a set rate card on what the cost would be for this. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to open it up, but you'll see that the rates are very reasonable. Typical contact is $30, slim contact $37, key fob $35. No one, of course, once again, is getting rich, and we would expect that our anchors adhere to this price or less when it comes to upselling any additional equipment. We think that, of course, we think it's reasonable, fair, and you can make a little bit additional money while doing this as well. So with that said, we encourage, obviously, anyone on the phone that's interested in becoming a service anchor or install anchor, an anchor with DynaMark, to give us a call. You'll notice that, and by the way, anything that you upsell, that money is paid to you, the anchor, and not to DynaMark. So if it's not been sold on the phone and shipped out, anything they decide to do at the site is money that the dealer is to keep. Of course, if anyone has questions, they can reach out to the regionals here. You're welcome to go ahead and reach out to our regional partner directors. Let me just pull that map up so you can see. If any of you want to take a screen scrape of this, just go ahead and hit print screen. You can do that right now, and you can go ahead and take a screenshot. But essentially, we are broken up to the north, the south, and the west. Rich Cowan is our Director of Sales in the west. Greg Penninger, Director of Sales in the south. Michael Hutcher is in the north. Feel free to take a screenshot of that so that you can contact them if you're interested in being an anchor. Now, I'll show you right now that we have anchors all throughout the United States, but we're always looking for more. So if you are in any of these, anywhere in the U.S. right now, even though on the map there might already be a hammer with that 65-mile circle, feel free to get in touch with us if you're interested in being an anchor for DynaMark. You can notice that there's a lot of spaces we have open. Our goal in the next probably 12 months is to essentially have all of these circles touching other circles, so this entire map is covered with anchors. Once again, feel free to reach out to the regional should you have any questions. Okay, with that said, I want to sort of shift gears now, guys, and I want to introduce you to our special guest. For most of you, of course, in the industry, and I'm sure most of you here have experience in the industry, either as a owner or as a manager or as a rep of some sort. I want to remind you that here at DynaMark, we have a network. Excuse me, let me pull up the right one here. We have 3 websites, by the way: DynaMark Partner, DynaMark Monitoring, and DynaMark Security. Under the DynaMark site, if you ever go here and you want to know more about our premier providers, you would simply click this button here, and here you'll be able to find out if you're a DynaMark dealer or a DynaMark partner, who are the premier providers that they work with. We have panel manufacturers, distributors, platforms, collections, CRMs, and we have insurance. And today, we've asked El Dorado Insurance Agency to join us in a presentation of their products and services. All of you, if you're dealers, have to be legal by being insured. And I think, if you haven't already done so, it's always a good idea every year to go and shop, make sure that you're working with the right person. So, first of all, I want to go ahead and thank Mr. Josh Ring for joining us. Josh, are you there?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
There we go. I think we're both clicking the same button.
Well, Josh, it's good to have you on. I know that Josh Ring and I have go back quite a few years. Andy Ring, certainly a family organization that started many years ago. He'll tell you the history. I've worked with these gentlemen for many years, formerly when I was director of the dealer program at Guardian, probably even Monotronics, and now here at DynaMark, probably in the industry, the best insurance company. So I'm going to pass the ball over to you, Josh. I'm going to pass this right here, make you the presenter. And then if you're not sure how to do that, you'll see a shared screen right in the center button right there. You push that button, it'll allow you to go ahead and share your PowerPoint if you have something.
Looking for it. Start my video. Is that the button I want to click?
There should be right there. It says, see at the top, File, Edit, Share. Just hit Share My Screen.
Oh,
That's another way to do it.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that way you can share your screen.
Monitor 2 should be it.
There you go. So what? And there it is. All right.
There we go.
And you'll just go full view. I'm sure. There we go.
Tell
everybody a little bit about yourself, Josh, your history, and how you can help them.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, Hank, for the opportunity, and appreciate everyone's time today. My name is Josh Ring. I'm the Vice President here at El Dorado. As Hank said, we are a family business, and I'll kind of get into some of that and then get back to the main topic of conversation today. But we're a family business. My father founded the firm actually 50 years ago last month, so we are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year, which we're obviously very happy about. And
congratulations! That's amazing, brother. Good job.
Thank you. Between myself and my brother, we've both been here at the family business now for over 15 years, and the old man is still enjoying his chairman of the board role, but by and by he's happy to be out to the farm and enjoying life with his grandkids. So we're the second generation can take it.
Yep.
Our corporate office is based in Houston, Texas, but we have offices throughout the U.S., California, Michigan. We have a sales office in Phoenix, and we are actively looking to try and get an office in the Florida area, but so far no luck on finding the right candidates there. El Dorado has always specialized in niche insurance programs. It's always been our philosophy that we would rather be expert in one or two particular fields rather than a jack of all trades. So early in our history, we really focused on the oil and gas industry and long-haul trucking associated with oil and gas. Of course, being here in Houston, that made a lot of logical sense. Once oil hit about $5 a barrel in 1981, 82, 83, whenever that was, we decided it was time to find an industry that was a little more recession-proof and a little more stable, and we stumbled upon the security industry. And we have been specializing in programs for the security industry for the last 30-plus years. It's been very good to us. We're very fortunate to be in the position that we're at, and as it stands right now, 100% of the business that we do, with a few stragglers here and there, is tied to the security industry, electronic security, so burglar fire alarm contractors, monitoring stations, CCTV, the IMPERS, as well as security guards, private investigators, fire suppression installers, service techs, fire extinguisher. We do some janitorial work, which are really sister companies to our security guard firms, but that has really been our focus, and it's been good to us. We are, at this stage, the largest retail insurance agency to the security industry in the country. We have a number of exclusive programs and really pride ourselves in our service. That's what drives the ship around here. The majority of our employees have been working for us for over a decade. In fact, I think we've got some folks that have been here for 20, 25 years. So, we try and make sure we find the right people, take care of them so they can take care of our customers and be a stable environment for prospects and customers alike. What I really wanted to talk to you about, and I'm not going to go through the myriad of programs that we can offer. I think everyone here is probably familiar with some of the insurance products that you need in order to run your business, particularly general liability, workers' comp, auto, even some bonding needs. I really wanted to focus on cyber liability today. It's a newer product. It's quite frankly, it's kind of the Wild West out there right now. It's an interesting space in the insurance industry because really and truly, there haven't been a lot of new insurance policies or areas created in a long time. And with the advent of the internet and connectivity and smart devices and mobile devices and just the ability to pay electronically and store electronic records, it has given rise, of course, as we all know, to criminals taking advantage of that situation, which in turn has driven the need for cyber liability insurance. The reason I say it's the Wild West is because just that, it is still a newer program, a newer product. And with it being a newer product, right now there is no standard cyber liability insurance form. Your general liability policy, let's take that for an example. There's an insurance governing body, ISO, Insurance Service Office, I believe is what it's an acronym for, but no one actually really refers to them as that. It's just ISO or ISO. There's an ISO CGL, Commercial General Liability form, that is approved and standard and used by all insurance companies. Now, there are instances where carriers can deviate from that CGL form, and they have to specifically show the cases where they are deviating from that form. But by and by, everyone uses the same form or derivative of that same form, and then maybe adds their own tweaks and tunes to suit the industry that they're looking to service. Obviously, as you might guess, a liability policy for an alarm installation contractor is going to look very different from that from a floral shop, but they are all based in the same insurance, principal kernel policy, and then you just tack on the add-ons needed to suit the specific industries. With respects to cyber liability, there is no standard ISO form. So I'm bringing all that up because it's coverage everyone should be carrying. We ourselves certainly carry cyber liability insurance, and you really need to be aware of some of the things I'm going to highlight today as far as exposures that are available, and you need to really know your insurance professional and kind of be able to grill them a little bit, and if they don't act like they know what they're talking about, it's a good indication that you may want to explore other options, because there can be huge swings in the coverages available, and you could wind up paying for something and not getting what you think you're paying for. So with all of that prefaced, what I really wanted to go through is just some high points. I know this isn't the format to go through a deep dive into cyber liability, but at least give you a few ideas to consider. And then after the end of the presentation, if you'd like to reach out to us or your current insurance professional, certainly feel free to do so. So with that said, a lot of the resistance that we get with respects to cyber liability is, oh, my company's too small. We're not Home Depot. We're not, who else has had Target had a bad cyber breach a few years ago. Mm-hmm. The bad guys are really looking to target large corporate accounts like that. And, sure, when Home Depot gets breached and millions upon millions of records are compromised, it makes headlines. Myself, thankfully, I don't know if you want to say thankfully or unthankfully, was caught up in both the Target and Home Depot breaches, and was caught and didn't suffer any damages. But I got a whole bunch of personal information monitoring and brand new credit card numbers out of it. So it can happen to anyone. But the misconception is that it won't happen to small business. Quite frankly, the majority of cyber liability claims and attacks do occur to small business. And the reason is your systems as a small business owner are not as complex as Home Depot or Target. By definition, those firms have a lot more money, probably have a lot larger in-house IT department, and have firewalls and resources that make it more difficult for a run-of-the-mill hacker or cyber terrorist to try and get into their systems. So what's happening is the bad guys, the cyber criminals, are figuring out how to manipulate and how to attack small business, and that's where we're really seeing a rise in the number of claims. So on the screen, I ask you, is your company at risk? Well, I think for most all of us, we accept credit cards. Most all of us bank online, have social media accounts, sensitive customer or employee data. I know personally we're 100% paperless around here. So we have all of our employee files, which include Social Security numbers, stored electronically. We have our customers' information stored. Now, we certainly do our best to encrypt it, but tax ID numbers, other contact information is stored online. And obviously, anyone that uses the Internet can accidentally click an email or go to the wrong website and compromise your own internal system. So at the end of the day, unless you're living in a cave somewhere, you're probably at some level of risk to suffering some type of cyber attack.
Right.
Recent study in 2016, which is obviously a couple of years old, 50% of cyber attacks involved two main targeted focuses, one being a funds transfer fraud and the other being ransomware attacks. We'll get to those two in a minute. But really, it's the ransomware and the funds transfer that the bad guys, the criminals, are using particularly effectively to target small to medium-sized businesses, because they have figured out it's an easy volume play to make smaller demands. They're not trying to hack into the IRS system where they're hoping to make the once-in-a-lifetime score. They're more hoping to get a very large volume of very small dollars, and hopefully that adds up. Getting to the first one, funds transfer fraud. What is funds transfer? That is where an unauthorized user transfers funds out of your bank account. Obviously, some of the risk factors, if you're online banking, and the risk factors for really most of your cyber type of losses, they're all going to be the same. It's, if you don't have great passwords in place or ineffective passwords, if you have old antivirus software or bad firewalls, if you have users that are not being educated on how to protect their passwords, looking out for emails that are unsafe, forwarding emails to their IT department and clicking on them without asking if this is an authorized email. It's all the same sort of scams that these cyber criminals run that can make your business susceptible. In the instance of funds transfer, this is where literally someone gains access to your system and just transfers money from one account to the next. There is a second situation with the funds transfer fraud. It ties to it, and I've got another slide in here, and I'll skip ahead to that. It's known as social engineering, and really it's social engineering and funds transfer that is kind of the 1-2 punch. Social engineering is sort of a newer attack by cyber criminals, and it's something that a lot of cyber liability insurers will not necessarily cover. This is an instance where someone impersonates another party and gets an innocent employee or an innocent shareholder at a firm to intentionally transfer money. The example that I was given when I was first sort of trying to figure out this scenario let's just say you've got a company with, maybe 30, 40, 50 employees. There's a company president. You've probably got an accounting manager, maybe some salespeople. And one of the cyber criminals hacks, let's just say, a salesperson's email address. And the cyber criminal emails the accounting manager and says, hey, I need you to transfer the X amount of dollars to this account because my expense account's low. Whatever the story is that they come up with, but they're sending an email or a phone call. It can be whatever, one or the other, to a person who has access to that company's bank accounts. That person who receives that email or that phone call is tricked into believing that this is a legitimate request, and then they go in and they make the transfer themselves, again, intentionally but unknowingly, into a cyber criminal's bank account. So, it's really scary to think that people can pull that off, but you can see how easily it could happen too. If you're an accounting manager and you get an email, Hank, let's just say your accounting manager at DynaMark gets an email from Hank Groff and says, hey, need you to transfer X amount of dollars, and they come up with a story why they need to do it. They're going to see that the email's from you, and maybe they think nothing of it, maybe they do think something of it, but because it's coming from you and it's impersonated and it looks like it's coming from you, more than likely they're going to click the link and make the transfer. So that's a really, really rising area where they're able to effectively target small to medium-sized businesses, and they're not asking for huge dollar amounts. It's not, transfer me $50,000 or $100,000, because that's going to run it up the flagpole and probably be beyond someone's authority. But can you transfer $1,000? Most firms aren't going to think too much about a dollar amount like that, and then it's gone.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, what's the likelihood cyber liability will happen to an alarm company?
Well,
is it? Have you guys heard of any evidence of this maybe happening in the last couple of years? And if it does happen, is it covered by any of the insurances most dealers typically buy?
No, and that is certainly something to keep in mind. Your standard commercial general liability policy excludes all instances of cyber liability. It is its own standalone policy.
Okay.
The thing with the alarm industry, and where I say a lot of those folks are susceptible, is, and right now it's not something where we're seeing, 30, 40% of our client base catching claims. It's not, knock on wood, it's not that prevalent yet. The challenge with the alarm space, and that's why you buy insurance, is for when you do catch a loss, in particular with cyber liability, it can be really catastrophic, and I'll get into some of that in just a bit. But with you're holding on to your customers for recurring billing. You've got your own customers' credit card information. Probably have some level of their social. Certainly have their home address information. All of those files that you keep. Hank, especially in your instance as a central station, you guys have a huge database of potentially sensitive information, but every one of your dealers is going to have information.
Yeah, that's a good point. What you're sharing is we always think of the need to have insurance to protect ourselves against coming through the ceiling or busting a hole through a wall or somebody slipping and falling at work, but we forget that we're carrying a lot of financial data that could be infiltrated.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not only, and that's what's so interesting about this cyber liability product, is not only does it protect you and your customers from the compromise of their data, but it's really primarily a first-party coverage, meaning it's protecting the policyholder itself, not there is coverage for the third parties, in other words, your client, but take an instance of where if your system's just hacked by a cyber criminal and you're down for 2 weeks, a good cyber liability policy is going to have business interruption coverage that's going to pay for the cost to recreate the data that was lost. It's going to pay for the lost revenues. It's going to pay for the reconstruction of the software that needs to get done, pay for employees' salaries while you were down. It's really important coverage to have to protect your business if you transact business electronically.
Sure.
Make sure in the event that, again, you're compromised, you're not at a huge financial loss. Another, and I mentioned that earlier, this idea of ransomware, and many of y'all have probably heard this before because this is something that even individuals are being targeted with. You click a bad link, you open the wrong email, and a little piece of software gets onto your computer, and it literally holds the computer or the network ransom. And this is probably the biggest rise in cyber criminal activity right now, above all others, because it's so easy for cyber criminals to get something on your machine. You click the wrong link, you go to the wrong website, it gets on there, and in this example, they're asking for $1,000. They know full well that many people can probably afford $1,000. They of course want it in Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency, so it's untraceable. But they're having success at pulling off this type of a situation because they're not telling the person, I need $100,000. They're asking for $500 or $1,000 and are getting paid. So, as they're getting paid, and even on this ransomware idea, a good cyber liability policy will actually help authorities, but will come up with the money to pay the ransomware to get your systems unlocked and then assist the authorities to try and track down the person. So, again, for first-party coverage, for protecting yourselves, that's where a good cyber liability policy is key to just protecting your business. But it's so interesting to me how these cyber criminals are really focusing on, it isn't just I want to hack data and steal credit card numbers play anymore. They are a multi-pronged approach, and are finding a number of different ways to try and extort money from everyone, businesses and individuals alike. Let's skip ahead since we already talked about the social engineering. The last one, and this is, of course, the big one on everyone's mind when you talk about cyber liability, and that's just the idea of a data breach. Your customers' records are compromised because someone hacks your system. We've all probably experienced something of that over time. And, while many people understand, my computer got hacked and, customer credit card numbers were lost, there's also instances of physical data breaches. I give an example here where someone throws out a box of HR files, and a bad guy finds this box with confidential employee records in it, physical files, but it's a cyber liability exposure. It's not a general liability exposure. So making sure you're properly protected. We had an instance where someone had a briefcase in their car that was stolen that had a physical laptop in it, and that winds up being a cyber liability exposure, not a general liability exposure. So the main thing with the data breach is not only does it cost a ton of money, of course, to make someone whole if their personal assets are compromised, are stolen, but for every record that is breached, you as the holder of that information are legally required in most states to provide at least 2 years of data monitoring. So if you have 1,000 customer records and those records are compromised for 2 years, so for 24 months at what does a LifeLock cost? Probably about $50, $100 a month. So let's just say 100 for ease of math. That's $2,400 per record times 1,000. So now we're talking about $240,000 in data monitoring costs alone, not to mention the potential lawsuits that could get dropped on your firm, the legal costs, the cost of recreating data, refunding monies that were stolen. That's the scary thing about cyber liability, is the losses can snowball and become catastrophic so very quickly. So that's why we're really trying to get the word out that this is something to consider.
Sure.
As far as just sort of the claims process, and any good carrier would work in this manner, but of course the first instance would be you find out there's been a data breach in some form or fashion. Either malware has been received, your system's been hacked, someone has been duped into transferring funds. Your carrier is going to immediately begin the investigation. They're going to assign a PR team and a legal team to work with you and to help you through the process. Carriers that write cyber liability, they are understanding that this is such a unique animal, and they actually are working with independent third-party firms that specialize in data and reputation management and trying to get people made whole as quickly as possible to limit the claims exposure and to limit exposure to your firm. In the short term, if there has been a data breach, of course, notifications and credit monitoring would go out. As we discussed, business interruption costs would get paid. And a key component is the public relations and crisis management coverage. Most general liability or auto or workers' comp policies don't offer that facet to it. And your reputable cyber liability carriers are going to give you, access to a PR firm to help keep your good name reputable. Generally speaking, a cyber breach is going to make some level of news, or at the very least, it's going to damage your reputation with your customers. And you're going to have someone there to work with you and help you through the process and help answer your customers' questions, concerns, as well as help deal with the potential fallout from class action lawsuits, regulatory bad exposures, that sort of thing. So I can't speak enough about how great this coverage can be, but how also the things that I'm detailing here are coverages that are coming from the reputable carriers that we work with. And I sure don't mind sharing the carriers' names that I think very highly of. That would be Travelers Insurance. I'm sure most people are familiar with Travelers. They've got a great cyber liability coverage form and offer the benefits that we've been talking about. Great American Insurance has a wonderful cyber liability form that does also have the bells and whistles we've talked about. And Philadelphia Insurance, which I know covers a lot of alarm dealers and contractors. Philadelphia has a cyber liability product that is very comprehensive and very broad. So there's others out there, and there's plenty of others out there that will offer some level of cyber liability, but they're not going to provide coverage for all of the things we've talked about today.
Let me stop and ask you a couple questions, because you've talked a lot about cyber liability, and that's just one piece. I don't want to take away from the importance of cyber liability, because I would venture to say, less than 10% of the people have cyber liability policies.
Less than 1%, to be honest with you.
Less than 1%. Yeah. And I don't know what the percentage of claims they are, so let's be real. I'll be realistic. There's probably, to be quite honest, a greater chance that somebody's going to come through the floor, somebody's going to get hurt on the job or some damage in the alarm business if they're installing the cyber liability 20 years ago. But now cyber liability is becoming just as dangerous as somebody coming through the ceiling, correct? I mean, it's getting
absolutely. And the reason that I really today chose not to focus on someone coming through the floor or drilling a hole in the window is most people by and by are familiar with those types of exposures. If one of your guys falls off a ladder, that's workers' compensation. We all know you need to carry workers' compensation to protect yourselves in case one of your employees gets hurt. General liability in most states is required to get your license, to maintain your license. Most of your central stations like DynaMark, like your aforementioned employers, Guardian and Monotronics, they require proof of insurance of that general liability policy. And really your general liability protects the general public from your mistakes. So if you drill a window and it causes leakage and mold damage, that's a general liability coverage. If one of your employees goes into someone's home and chooses to start a fire by accident because they ran the wrong electrical and burns down the house, that's going to be a general liability coverage. Of course, driving your vehicles, that's auto. Everyone knows that because you have your own personal auto policy. And I hate to gloss over those. Those are really ultimately your most important coverages. And everyone, I think, well, I hate to say everyone, it's commonly known, and those exposures are commonly known, that's why I today really wanted to bring up the cyber liability, because it's something that's not as commonly known, and it's something that is
Sure.
greatly on the rise. Yeah.
I do have one question, and for those who, two questions actually. Let me ask you the first one, then I'll ask you the second one. The first one, what is the typical general errors and omissions type insurance that most people should have as a minimum? What do you guys recommend?
From a limit perspective?
Yes.
Yes, I would say your absolutely standard out there is $1 million general liability, usually with a $2 million aggregate. I think that's standard in the insurance marketplace. That's what most central stations look to carry. You have some carriers that can offer coverages less than $1 million. I would not recommend it, because as soon as you get hooked up with a reputable central station like Dynamark, they're going to ask you to carry $1 million, and then you're going to have to go back and deal with canceling and rewriting the policy to meet your central station's requirements. The other thing your general liability carriers will look for is they are going to want to review a copy of your monitoring agreement. Again, we know Dynamark's contract is well written and has the appropriate clauses and liquidated damages language in it, but that's something to be aware of as you speak to your insurance professional, and as they try and secure you general liability coverage. Most carriers will ask to see a copy of that contract to review it and make sure that they're comfortable, so that you're not overly exposed to monitoring claims.
So now let's say that this new service, this new cyber liability is added to the policy. Is it usually cause the policy to increase by 20%, 10%, 50%? What is typically what these guys should expect to protect their futures in their business? How much additional would they expect to pay?
The cyber liability is actually going to be a standalone policy. It will not be added on to the general liability, which is good. That way you don't have one policy potentially eroding the exposure and limits of the other. I think that's important. Cyber liability coverage, unlike general liability, since cyber liability is something that you're really carrying more to protect yourself than you are to satisfy the demands of a state licensing board or a monitoring station or just your customers. You can really custom tailor the limits on a cyber liability policy to whatever your pocketbook can handle. So you can write cyber liability coverage for as low as $50,000 or as high as $50 million. The pricing on that obviously then is determined by the procedures that your firm has in place. It's determined by the limits that you want to carry, the experience that you have in your industry. So there's a number of factors, but I would say cyber liability starts out at probably $500 annually, and then can go up from there depending on how much insurance you want to carry, how little or how great. Is it pretty consistently priced? Meaning that for every 500,000, let's just say that 50,000 or let's say 100,000 is the starting point, and then, like you said, incrementally it's going to rise with the amount that you're purchasing. Obviously, it's going to cost more if you buy more. Is what I'm saying. Certainly, yes, and the other factor there also is cyber liability coverage for. With all due respect to Dynamark, Hank, I think cyber liability coverage for ADT is going to run a little bit more than for you guys because you haven't quite caught up to them yet. So when you catch them, you're going to pay the same. But you got I know you got a few more years to catch up to them. So
well, it's something that we should think of as a company. But you're right. We would listen. This is not for conversation on this call. But if I was an owner, as I am one of the officers of the company here, but also as a former owner of an alarm company and having the necessary requirements, a lot of us don't want to spend that little bit of extra to get something to protect ourselves. But I think with the number of breaches that have occurred in the digital world, I think you're right, Josh. I think it's something any alarm company should think about seriously.
Absolutely, and that's why I wanted to have the dialogue today. Is it's not something that's going to be required by any state licensing board or frankly probably by any central station yet. Now that could always change too, but it's something that the conversation at least needs to be out there, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't make people aware of some of these other coverages and policies that aren't necessarily at the forefront, like your GL and your workers' comp and your auto, that, again, I think most people are familiar with.
So if they wanted to reach you, is this the best way to reach? Should they reach you, or do you have a representative? How would they want to contact?
Feel free to contact me personally if it's something where I'm traveling and can't quite get to it immediately. I've got a qualified sales team here that I will happily refer you all over to. Hank, of course, you know Tommy. He's still actively engaged in the firm. Tommy's our director of sales and has worked with Hank, I think, even longer than I have. So Tommy's very qualified and capable, as well as all the other folks here.
Jonathan, I'm going to ask you a favor to pass me the ball. Before everyone leaves, I'm going to pass everyone a document that I shared earlier on the Anchor program, something you can read up on. I believe I can still do this because it's been a long time since I've ever tried to do this, but perhaps I can make this work. I want everybody, when you get a moment, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at the document and let me know. I can see here now that it's going to be a little difficult to do. Let me see if I can do this. File, see if that's what I've noticed, everyone, is that this document needs to first go on my desktop. There we go. In order to do this for you, let me transfer this over. You should see a screen pop up here in just a second, and it's going to have on there a document you can. There we go. Okay, I think I figured it out, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. So there it is. You should see a file that's popped up. If you'll go ahead and hit the download button, highlight it, and then download it. I think that should allow you to download this. If you're interested in reading more about the Anchor program, feel free to highlight and then download that document. It'll go onto your computer. You can read up on our program. Once again, we are looking for service anchors around the country. We pay you well for it, as well as installation anchors, and we would love to talk to you more about that. I'll also, real quickly, I can download the document of our team around the country. There we go. So if you want to know who our team members are around the country, click that other one, and that is my 3 regional directors who are managing the country. They would be the person you want to talk to about being a service anchor. And once again, for any insurance needs, definitely reach out to El Dorado. They're a premier provider of ours, been with us for many years, and probably the company out there to write the policy at a very reasonable cost and excellent insurance. Reach out to Josh Ring. Anyone have any questions for any of these, either myself or Josh, before we wrap up? We can take you off mute real quick, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Is anyone out there that has questions for any of us? I know a lot of people are going to be talking. Does anybody have any questions? Nobody out there have any questions for us? Okay.
No questions here.
All righty. Well, listen, thank you guys for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We'll have this recorded. It'll be sitting up on our resource library so you can listen more. When you go back to the Premier Provider page, you'll see a little icon that says DynaWeb. That's where you'll press that, and you can watch Josh talk again about El Dorado Insurance. Guys, if you're not, yes, go ahead. Somebody's got a question.
I apologize for interrupting, but
no problem.
I didn't get Josh's number.
Sure, we can put that back up. Josh, I'm going to pass you the ball again. Sure. Why don't you go ahead and just pull up share your screen one more time like you did earlier. Josh's number, he'll pull it up so you can write it down. Oh, by the way, while he's doing that, just go up there, John. Yeah, you got it. While he's doing that, guys, we're going to be out next week in Vegas at the ISC West. I'm not sure. Josh, are you guys going out there?
Yeah, we get there Wednesday morning, and we'll be around the whole show, and we'll be at the DynaMark show on Thursday. So certainly, please feel free to swing by and say hello to myself or my brother Andy. We'll both be there, and would love to yak further if the opportunity presents itself.
Yep, and myself, I'll be in Vegas. If you want to reach out to me and want to meet with me, you guys, most of you have my email address. There's Josh's number. There's Josh's email. Feel free to reach out to Josh if you have further questions on insurance needs. Anybody else have any more questions?
I got what I need, Cliff.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you again. Thanks for it. I look forward to seeing everybody next week in Vegas. Other than that, we'll see you next month on our next DynaWeb. Take care.
Yep, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
I could go, but I don't have money.